Okay, so I think we're good to get started. Thank you everyone for joining today. Today we will be hearing from Paul from Delinea, and he will be teaching us about privileged access management and cyber liability insurance. So Paul, take it away.
Great, thank you very much. Let me just pull up the presentation here and make sure that it's shown okay. Doesn't look like it's sharing yet.
Yep, I see it. If you just wanted to put it in presentation mode.
All right.
Awesome.
Everyone seeing that okay, the rise of cyber insurance?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So thank you very much. Welcome today. So my name is Paul Kader. I'm the Channel Director for Delinea Canada. And today we're going to speak about the rise of cyber insurance. And I think there's a lot of topics, a lot of things to uncover. There's a lot of meat that goes into becoming compliant and seeking insurance or renewing your insurance. I would say about 80 to 85% of all of our interactions with our customers are being driven by the insurance providers or a need to either demonstrate compliance, up-level their compliance, otherwise they're at risk of losing their insurance, or because they're have a net new requirement to obtain insurance. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the responses from our 2023 cyber insurance survey that'll kind of inform some of the decisions that we have to make. And as we go through this, I hope you leave here with a little bit better information about how Delinea can help your organizations obtain insurance or reduce your premiums or increase the amount that you can apply for from an insurance perspective, as well as speed your time to obtain insurance. Because Delinea is recognized by all the major insurance organizations as a leader in the PAM space, it checks off a lot of boxes a lot quicker within the organization. So there's two additional resources that your CDW account manager will be providing to you at the end of today's webinar. One of them is the Cyber Insurance Assessment Readiness Checklist. So this is a great document, and if you look, I took a little snapshot in the upper right of one of the sections, a small subset of the section. So you can kind of see what this is referring to. So it talks about what the insurers want to know and how you can prepare for them asking those questions, and how Delinea can help respond as well. And it covers 5 main areas, which is identifying your risks, protecting your assets, detecting risk and breaches, responding to cyber attacks, and recovery after an attack. That's about a 4-page document, pretty light, pretty easy. And then there's this Delinea white paper that we're going to be providing as well, which goes into depth mapping the insurance requirements to the Delinea products and solutions. So it really gives you a very easy point A to point B. So you understand how our solutions get you to compliance within the different controls and requirements that the cyber insurers are asking of your organization. Because this is a very comprehensive document, it's not something that makes sense to go through in great detail in a webinar type of a format. So this is going to be a leave behind that you guys can look at and to invest in. That'll help you better understand how we help your organizations fulfill your requirements. So stepping back a little bit, as I think we always like to do when we present, specifically when it comes to security, it's like these are our research, as well as some of the third-party researchers, and kind of like what's keeping our cybersecurity leaders up at night. And we've come up with about 8 specifically. Not all of them are related directly to PAM, but most of them kind of, you'll see, have a PAM overlay or underlay to it. So poor access management, insecure applications and APIs, misconfigured cloud storage, distributed denial of service attacks, overprivileged users, password-only security controls, securing third-party access and remote employees, and of course, shadow IT. A funny story with shadow IT, because I used to always think that it was malicious. It kind of says, it's very, covert, very hidden. And my girlfriend was a general manager of her organization, and she had an application that she always used whenever she went to new organizations. And unbeknownst to her, she started using the application. She started loading company data in. It was a way for her to glean information and intel out of all of their organizations' data that they collect, and informed her on decisions that she would make. And I remember her telling me a story where she was presenting to the board her findings and using the tool. And there was a gentleman in the room who was the CISO, and he kind of approached her after the meeting and said, "What application was that you were using?" And she's like, "Oh," she named the application. He's like, "That's not a sanctioned application. What information are you feeding into it?" She's like, "Oh, I've tied it into our database in terms of application. I'm feeding all of our Excel spreadsheets in it." And he's just lost it. He's like, "Oh my God, you can't do that." She's like, "Well, what do you mean? I need this to do my business." And then they had to figure out how to work together to secure an application that he didn't even know wasn't approved by the organization. So I think we can see that there's a lot of these things going on in the world, and we need to make sure that we're doing everything we can to help de-risk our organizations and our businesses. So a couple things here on why we're seeing security risks are increasing, and I'm sure you've all seen this as well in each of your environments and kind of the world in general. The complexity of IT has substantially accelerated, specifically due, of course, to COVID and the change that we've all needed to make in this new landscape of how we do work. And I know we're, a couple of years removed from where it was really prevalent, but talking to organizations, they're still really struggling to make these adoptions, to support and secure the remote applications, to stay on top of all the changes, because it requires a lot more investments, it requires a lot more intricacies, and that creates a lot of complexity. And that has also created a lot of increase in the expanding landscape. We're now using a lot more cloud infrastructure, we're using a lot more SaaS applications. No longer are we able to just contain everything in a nice kind of moat and castle, if you will, methodology. And of course, security vendors like us are continuing making it more difficult because there's more coming out of the woodwork every single day. And to try to understand and get on top of how all these different security solutions can help my organization, and understand that there has been a massive shift from the traditional, what I would say, core cybersecurity components like email security, endpoint security, network security like firewalls, to a lot much more sophisticated and in some cases more granular security controls. And learning all these new technologies and how to support them is also adding to that complexity. I like this slide because I'm sure if I were to ask if you could put your hand up, you would probably put your hand up that some or all of these are some initiatives or drivers that you're working on. I like reading it like this, from left to right. So because of the amount of digital transformation that drove our organizations to a more distributed workforce, we've seen an increase in ransomware. So organizations have started to invest in zero trust frameworks to limit, control, and secure things like third-party secure access, and overall obtain cyber insurance. We can kind of like frame it like that. They're all kind of intertwined, and it's all a good area where you probably have some type of project specific to that. But if you take a step back, it's really all related. And again, just cybersecurity kind of adding more buzzwords into things probably make things more complex as it is. But why are privileged accounts such attractive targets? And I think it's interesting to note that privileged accounts aren't just human accounts. Applications have privileged accounts as well. Endpoints have privileged accounts. So we need to understand that those are the holy grail for the bad guys to get a hold of. Once I get that privileged, elevated access, and within an organization that hasn't limited the control, that hasn't put things in like just-in-time access, and limiting the amount of time that password is available, or password rotation, or even knowing who's using a password in groups. Like, for example, if there's an admin 1, but there's 5 administrators, and during the week or month, all 5 of them will sign out admin 1 as their username and password. How do I know who's sitting behind that admin 1? Is it one of my 5 employees? Is it a 6th person who doesn't work for my organization? What if one of those 5 employees, did something that we wouldn't allow? How can I track that. So you want to also make sure you have session recording as well, and things like this that PAM solutions provide. Um, the other thing is the high dwell times, right? We all know that once the bad guys get in, they can sit in and move laterally for a very long time before they're noticed. So we also want to implement things like user behavior analytics to ensure that, you know, someone in sales who shouldn't be accessing finance, you know, we're triggering those things. But more importantly, we're identifying the correct amount of access, the right level of access, and the right time that each individual needs to access anything within an organization to prevent all of these from happening in the first place. And everything does have an identity. And this is where Delinea really has focused on our security practice. And it's been very much accelerated with the pandemic, because wherever we move, if our security moves with us, it's a lot easier to protect that environment, as opposed to protecting all the individual doors and windows and applications and servers. If we can protect the individual and make sure they are who they say they are, they only have access to what they're supposed to access, when they're supposed to access it, for just the time they need it, that's incredibly powerful control that you'll have over your employees, your third parties, and every one of your applications within your organization. So as you can see here, most cyber attacks target privileged access. And if you look at this, 82% involve the human element. And a lot of this is both malicious and non-malicious. And I'll show you in another slide that employees are either being hired by the bad hat actors to penetrate organizations, or they're being approached for monetary gain by the bad hat actors, or they're doing things just maliciously. An email comes in, I haven't had proper cybersecurity awareness training, and I go and click on a link, and unbeknownst to me, it's Trojan horse, and I let the bad guys come in. In the case of ransomware breaches, 13% increase in the last years combined. Again, just going through the roof, and 62% of incidents in the system intrusion prevention pattern involve threat actors compromising partners. So again, it's coming from different areas. It's not always coming from within, but we give that third-party access to vendors who we trust, and somehow they're maybe not putting the same scrutiny or the same level of security on their organization with their connectivity, and then that's coming into your organization as you authorize them into your system. We really need to make sure we're on top of things like privilege misuse. So if you look at the graph on the right, you can see that financial gain substantially trumps why people are motivated to attack their organization, to try to steal information. And if you look at the internal active motives, it's really critical. I mean, yes, there's some grudges and some espionages. Some people are doing it just for fun. But if you look at the threat actors, 99% of these threat actors are internal. This is massive. So we really need to take a look at how we secure our internal employees, our third-party resources, to really drive down this number and help secure our business. The other interesting one here is that 7% of breaches involve multiple threat actors. So this is like a conglomerate where an internal employee could be approached, or they could be seeded by an external bad hat actor or through a partner to intentionally do damage or harm and steal sensitive information from organizations. I had no idea that number. I mean, 7% doesn't seem that high, but when I step back and think about it, that's actually a pretty big number. If you have 100 employees, 7 of them are going to be working with multiple parties to work cohesively to exfiltrate information from your organization. And a couple other stats here. You can see 74% of all breaches include that human element. I said that before, and it's really critical that we dive down on the human element of things. Cyber insurance has become ubiquitous. What that means is it's pervasive, it's everywhere. It's being talked about so much. When I was working previously at Cisco Systems, we did a survey there, and we saw a 450% increase in cyber insurance requirements in the year between 2022 and 2023. Just a massive increase, and that is driven wholly by organizations getting breached again, and trying to figure out how we can solve these problems. We really need to understand that is a core focus area. However, just because you get cyber insurance, be prepared to put it to work. 80% of our respondents say that they've already used their insurance, and half of those have used it multiple times. But cyber insurance isn't the end all and be all. I think we all know that if we're pulling insurance or a requirement for cyber insurance, it's because there's already been an incident in place. And what Delinea's solution will help you do is not just qualifying for cyber insurance, but to reduce your threat landscape, minimize your exposure, and reduce the need to even pull a trigger on cyber insurance. So not only will we help you obtain cyber insurance, we'll be able to reduce your premiums, be able to increase the amount that you can qualify for, but hopefully by putting better tools in place, more visibility, more granular access and security controls, we're also going to be able to mitigate, if not substantially reduce the risk to your organization. So a couple stats from our survey that I thought would be very relevant. Has your company applied, or are you applying for cyber insurance? And you can see that most of the organizations here are either applying, or it's about 48% are either applying or have applied or are currently reapplying. An interesting fact as well, that 60% say it takes 1 to 3 months to obtain insurance, and 30% find it takes about 4 to 6 months. So if you're thinking about obtaining cyber insurance, I make sure you're planning ahead. On average, I say it's probably closer to 3 to 5 months is kind of the mean average. That captures most organizations. And as I mentioned, using services and products like Delinea will help shrink that time to obtain insurance. But make sure you are planning it not just in your budgets, but in your controls. And what we also found is that if you have your executive management and board of directors buy-in, that is huge. You can see here, it's actually the second main reason for applying for cyber insurance. So of course, risk reduction kind of goes hand in hand. But what they say, 33% of respondents said that the main reason they applied was because of board or executive management pressure. So if you aren't already in the process of getting cyber insurance, you should expect a call from the board soon asking you to get going, or make sure that you're building your case with them in mind, because they're the ones that are going to be able to open the purse strings and really fast track you on your road to getting this accelerated within your organization. And this is critical because there is a rising cost to obtaining cyber insurance. And 75% reported that cyber insurance costs have increased since their last renewal, with 65% of those respondents indicating that their increase was by 50 to 100% more. However, despite the increase, companies are finding that budget to pay the insurers, and almost 95% of respondents got the budget they needed to obtain cyber insurance, and 3 out of 4, or 76%, had it fully covered. And this suggests that IT and security leaders who struggle to get budget for hiring experts or purchasing can leverage the board's interest in cyber insurance to obtain those needed resources. Again, it's a nice path to obtaining if you are struggling within your organization. So what assistance, if anything, was required in obtaining your insurance policy? Unlike general liability, which may be handled directly by the finance or risk teams, cyber insurance also requires the skills and support from a much larger group of organizations, from IT and security groups. So it's likely that you'll be asked to produce evidence of your security controls and share your ongoing strategies to reduce risk. More than 50% of companies used internal IT resources when getting cyber insurance, and just under 40% involve their cybersecurity teams as well. So again, think of this as a collaborative effort. It'll streamline your process, getting everybody on board earlier, and really help you drive the outcomes that you're looking to get at. Has your organization ever used cyber insurance due to a security breach? And this kind of goes to a point I made earlier. If you have insurance, get ready to use it. You can see here, it's almost 80%, I guess that's about 79%, have said that they have had to pull the plug on or activate their cyber insurance due to a breach or incident. And what the most alarming one for me is the second line, that greater than 40% have had to use it multiple times. I've heard horror stories of organizations who will ransomware an organization, give them the keys, give them the information back after they get paid, only to ransomware them again, and do that multiple times and just keep exploiting them until they can figure out how to block what they're doing. It's not a pretty sight to be in. We want to make sure that we're helping support organizations avoid those sort of things. So I talked a little bit about the slide, so I'll skip ahead. So what does your cyber insurance policy cover? I think this is critical. We all want to know, what are the key areas and investment strategies that I need to focus on? So data recovery, victim identity and credit monitoring. You can see these are all below 50% incident response. So like I said earlier, just because you have an insurance policy doesn't mean that you're fully covered. In fact, 70% say their policies won't even cover ransomware. And as I said earlier, 86% of customers have reported an increase in ransomware in their organizations. So it's common sense to not have cyber insurance as your stopgap, your end all, your safety net, but using the framework that a cyber insurer provides to help up level your cybersecurity investment, using the board who needs to comply with these and will give you the funding, will help you find avenues to invest in additional technology, where maybe if you were to just go to your C-suite, your board, your CFO to gain access to funds, you won't maybe have that same buy-in from the board as you would if you address it from the lens of a cyber liability insurance and addressing that. And this is why I need to buy this new solution or implement this new service or outsource some of these services, because I want to reduce my landscape. So what additional tools did most of our surveyed people say that they had to obtain to renew or obtain their policy? And you can see at the top, at 50% is and 51% is identity and access management. And that's a subset of where Delinea plays and why we think it's a critical core requirement to obtain your insurance with cyber liability insurance. In fact, Delinea's products and services cover 33% or 15 of the 45 controls required to obtain cyber insurance. So while things like multi-factor authentication are critical as well, we want to make sure you're looking at it more holistically and covering as many of the areas within your controls with the least amount of products and solutions. Because as we know, I think today's numbers are on average 70 to 80 different security vendors, solutions, and tools sets within each organization. You want to look at vendors that have the ability to cover as much as possible. So I don't have to have 5, 16, 20 vendors that proliferate, that adds complexity that we talked about earlier, that adds costs. So having an organization that can cover as many controls as Delinea can will be significantly valuable for you going forward as you make these investments or consider moving forward with cyber liability insurance. So how, if at all, did you meet the privileged access management requirements for your cyber insurance application? This really informs us here that less or just slightly more than 40% had existing solutions in place. This is the opportunity here for all of us to go back within our organization and really reevaluate, do I have the right privileged access management solutions in place today? Am I compliant? Am I evolving my PAM maturity as per Gartner? And I'll show you a slide a little later that kind of helps walk through that. Work with your account managers at CDW and Delinea to help assess where you are today and inform you on how you are on the maturity model and how we can help you progress down that maturity model to the utopia, which is zero standing privileges. It's just a concept of zero trust that takes it to the next level. Over 40%, I just made those comments, so I'll just skip ahead to this one here. So the big problem statement in the market right now is that because of the existence of privileged access, it carries such a significant risk. Even with privileged access management tools in place, the residual risk of users with standing privileges remains very high. So what we mean by standing privileges is that it's kind of like always on access. So if I have administrative access and I have my username and password and that password never rotates, and once I log into a system, I have access to all the the keys to the kingdom. That is critically damaging and it opens up a significant risk to my organization. Instead, what we want to look at doing is having administrators or privileged access users have specific time requirements for the tasks that they're doing. And that after they have used their password, not only does it time out so that another person can't get that password and use it maliciously, but it also rotates that password. So that password that was used by that end user, that privileged user, no longer exists anymore. And it's all happening seamlessly and frictionlessly. There's a lot of pushback, I think, when changing how IT people, specifically super users, do their business. So what we want to make sure is that it's easy to use, it's frictionless, and it's seamless for not just your privileged users, but we're also extending privileged access management to all the business users as well and the application. There's different tiers and different identifying structures and frameworks for each one. But this is really a core and how we can start to further adopt the zero trust framework and really move towards that zero standing privileges methodology. In an example, a user that has a zero standing privileges versus someone who has it all the time, that access might be available for a total of 7 hours in a day versus maybe only being needed to have been used for 30 minutes within a day. So again, very much taking our time to shrink the threat landscape and minimize the potential impact that the bad guys can have. So looking forward around recommendations and how we can start driving better security, leveraging privileged access management, as well as applying towards and qualifying for cyber liability insurance. You want to look at reducing your attack surface in these three main buckets. We want to know where our users exercise privilege. So what we want to do is take a step back and analyze, as part of our tools and services, who has privilege, where is it throughout your entire organization, both the human element, the application element, and the device element. Then we want to evaluate what actions those users do with those privileges. Do they have too much privilege? Do they have access to too many different things that they really should be more compartmentalized? Or give them access to, again, just-in-time access of approved applications? That they don't need to have an administrator come in, log in, and load an application on for them. They can simply click on that approved application and be authorized for that time being that it takes to download to their laptop. And then, of course, time. We want to, again, minimize how much time it takes for people to do the things that they need to do to help secure the business or to make change and control within the organization. So as I mentioned, there's the Gartner PAM maturity curve, and you can see on the upper right is zero standing privileges. That's the utopia. So what I would encourage you all to do is to schedule a session with CDW account managers and bring the Delinea team in. And what we can do is go through your current PAM maturity, and we can assess where you are today, and we can give you a framework and a path towards how to move along the curve to a more advanced privileged access management service. Now, it doesn't require you to go point by point. Some organizations, based on different products and services, will maybe prioritize some things versus others. Maybe I have more of a priority to secure my people versus my applications, or I really want to focus on securing my endpoints first, then I'm going to secure my people, then I can secure my application. There's a lot of different ways that you can combat this, but the goal is to make sure that we're consistently taking our time to evaluate where we are and that we're moving consistently along the maturity model chain. As a recap, and as I mentioned, Delinea PAM solutions do cover 33% or 15 to 45 cyber insurance requirements. This is going to help you as an organization when choosing Delinea as a product and service to reduce your time to obtain insurance, lower your premiums, and at the same time, increase the amount of money that you can qualify for. So last but not least, a little bit about Delinea, in case you didn't really know too much about us. We are an absolute leader in all of the 5 major analysts that cover insurance, Gartner, Forrester, Kuppinger Cole, and a few others. We've been established for a very long time, but not everybody necessarily knows who we are by the brand name, as we rebranded to Delinea about 2.5 years ago, 2 years ago now, from the merger between Psychotic and Centrify. Some of you may have used our products under those umbrellas in the past, but we are still making sure that the name Delinea and the brand Delinea is becoming synonymous with a leader in privileged access management. But from a competitive advantage or differentiation, the 3 pillars that you see here truly are what is driving the success that we have, as well as the CSAT rating that we're getting from Gartner reviews from our existing customers, is that our ease of use and our ability to scale is extremely simple. Our time to value is extremely fast. And the way that we're positioning our cloud platform has been just very, very valuable for our customers, because they're getting more and more value, more benefits with a lot less time and a lot less effort to manage, maintain, and upload and support the services. As a bonus, I believe this webinar is all about the ebook as well. If you want to get the Conversational Cyber Insurance Volume 2nd edition ebook, reach out to your CDW account manager as well, and we'll make sure we get you a copy of this ebook. So hopefully by joining today, you're going to get a few things. You're going to get a 4-page assessment tool that's going to allow you to kind of evaluate where you are. You're going to get, I think it's about a 30 or 40-page white paper that maps the insurance controls to how Delinea products and services can help you solve those controls. And you can get your cyber insurance ebook as well. So my call to action right now is find time to meet with your CDW AMs, have a conversation about how privileged access management can be a requirement within your organization and can help you drive down your cost of your insurance, increase the amount of money that you can apply for, and ultimately, as we all want to do, secure our businesses substantially better. So that's all I got for a presentation today. I've left lots of time. If there are any questions or that you guys want to ask at this point in time, we can certainly do a little Q&A. If not, given that it's December, I don't think everyone wanted to be here for a full hour. Hopefully the information I presented today was enough of a teaser to make you understand that by working together in partnership with CDW and Delinea, we can help you further secure your environment, specific as it relates to privileged access management. I want to thank everybody for their time, and as the holidays are coming up, happy holidays, everybody. I'll stay on if there's anyone who wants to come off for any questions. So I see where you slide the share deck. I will be providing the PDF version of the deck, and your CDW AMs will forward that along with the 2 PDFs that we've sent as well, that we'll be sending as well. So yes, absolutely, this presentation will be sent along with everybody. Thank you. Thanks, Ryan. Thanks, Merlo. Thank you, everybody.
Awesome. Looks like we don't have any questions. So thanks, Paul. Thanks, everybody. Bye.